Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. It's 2 o'clock in New York, so we are excited to get ready and get started with our next webinar. This career guidance webinar is on the topic of searching for internships in the United States. And while everyone logs in, we know people usually join a few minutes late. If you'd like to just shoot us a message in the chat box and tell us where you're calling in from, where in the United States you want to do an internship, and also, if you've already started your internship search, maybe for this webinar, let us know what's working for you and what isn't working for you. And maybe we can incorporate some of that into this presentation. I'll get started with the introductions. My name is Tammy Nicholson. I'm the program manager for the Career Training USA program at InterExchange, and I'm joined by my colleague, Fatima Rodriguez.
Hi, everyone. My name is Fatima Rodriguez, and I am the Communications and Recruitment Coordinator here at InterExchange, and I'm also located in New York.
So Fatima, before we do the rest of the intros, do we want to start reading off some of, I see some responses have come in. Do we want to start reading some of those off?
Yes, we have, I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I know how to pronounce your name properly, but Borazin Murat from Poland. Do you want to let us know like where exactly you want to intern here in the US, and maybe a field that you're interested in getting your internship from? We also have Gustavo from Colombia. He's interested in doing an internship in Los Angeles. And then we also have Nicole from Mexico, who's also interested in doing a hospitality training program in Seattle. Who else do we have here? And we have Borazan wants to do computer engineering, computer science. He's not really sure what location he wants to do an internship in the US. So I guess you're pretty open, and hopefully we can, with this webinar, you'll be able to find the internship for you and the location. And also we have Katerina from Hungary, who's interested in doing an internship in Miami. So far that's all the responses we got, but continue to putting it in the chat box and we'll be happy to read it out loud.
It's always nice to know where people are calling in from and where they're hoping to be maybe this time next year. So for those of you who've joined us before, you know over the last month or so, we've been conducting a series of career guidance webinars to help prospective interns maximize this time to prepare for their internship. And today we're going to focus on the actual search component of the international internship application process. Anyone out there who is unfamiliar with InterExchange, we are a cultural exchange organization based in New York City. And our mission is to assist students and young professionals engage in programs in the United States. And we also help students and young professionals engage in programs overseas. But the Career Training USA program in particular works with those who are interning or training in the United States. And we help them to train in internships or traineeships and gain skills related to what they've studied in the past or some of their past professional experiences. As you maybe have noted, if you've joined this webinar series before, everyone's muted. So please use the chat feature to ask us any questions or communicate with us if there's anything you need us to repeat or if the audio cuts out. If you're having any technical difficulties, just type into the chat box. We have a pause in the middle of this, and as well as any questions that were submitted during the registration as well. And like always, this session is being recorded, so if you have to leave early, you will get a copy of this session in the next day or so. So with that, we'll just go into the outline of today's session. Today we're going to talk about what is an internship. We'll talk about the benefits of interning in the United States. We'll discuss the typical internship search timeline, how to prepare for your internship search. And we'll also end the session with specific internship search tips that you can use for looking for an internship in the United States. And like always, we'll finish up with some questions and answers. And again, if you have any questions, you don't have to wait till the question and answer section, but we will have a dedicated time at the end to discuss anything that goes unsaid during this presentation. So with that, Fatima, I'm going to turn it over to you to discuss what's an internship.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tammin. So we all know, or at least we've all heard that an internship, adds great value on a resume. So we want to first define and start this presentation with, kind of think about like what is an internship in the context of a US internship, because it might be a little bit different in terms of what is required and the components of participating in US internship as opposed to your home country. So an internship is essentially a short-term work-based learning experience offered by organizations in different industry. So it's very practical and it's hands-on experience and in the industry field of your interest. And also it can last from several months to 1 year. And it also you may also be offered financial compensation or student credit. So it's not just volunteer work. It really does give you that valuable experience that you can add to your resume and enhance your professional development and potentially even explore a career path. Now, why should you intern in the United States? So many of you might already be familiar with what an internship entails, as I've mentioned earlier, and the benefits of doing the benefits of doing an internship in your home country. But we're just going to take it a step further and think about why you should do an internship in the United States and how exactly that would propel your career. And we're going to go over typical responses that we usually get from interns when we do our interviews, just to gauge their rationale for applying for this program. So many participants want to gain an international experience along with the knowledge and skills that you would learn while you're on this program, typically because a lot of US workplaces are known for their dynamic and innovative workplaces, such as, an open floor plan, or many of the headquarters are located here in the United States. And participants want to have the ability to access this type of atmosphere. And in addition to that, some key organizations are also looking for international interns in order to diversify their work, their staff, and even their ideas, so that they can add value to certain projects that they're working on, and even increase the ability for, and in turn, this increases the ability for interns to have that driving component in a company's organizational goals and mission. So in a lot of ways, this really increases your marketability, and it even allows you to really network with different industry professionals in your field. And the reason why this is super important, because we do know that like every country has a different process of how things work, regardless of what their field is in. So being exposed to new technologies and new methodologies really will help separate you from your peers in your home country. And in addition to doing this, by doing an internship in the United States, this will also increase your English speaking and intercultural communication skills, whether this is because you have to practice your business English in the office amongst your colleagues, or because you're engaging with other Americans outside of the office. And a lot of these individuals want to come to US to learn more about US culture while they have the opportunity to live and work here. We also do have an upcoming webinar and in regards to business English in the workplace, and about US culture in the workplace as well. So if you'd like to learn more about that, definitely sign up for our upcoming webinars about that. And then lastly, many participants do want to come to the United States to just become more independent and confident. It does take a lot of guts to move to another country, especially one like the United States, and to begin interning in another country that is different from your own, like that really will allow you to immerse yourself in a different culture and learn more about yourself and learn more about others. And a lot of different way, and another way to increase your confidence and build your independence, just simply even just like finding an apartment or navigating public transport, becoming more proficient in another language. These are all important skills that, employers will seek once you start applying for jobs in your home country. They'll see that you're able to adapt and really navigate a different culture and perhaps even a different work environment. So in the next slide, we're just going to go over some anecdotes from two previous interns about why they wanted to intern in the United States. We have Eduardo. He was from Italy, and he wanted to use his design experience to impact as many people, but particularly wanted to work for design firms in the United States, such as Fantasy Interactive Works, so he can work with bigger clients and even work with a collaborative team that is comprised, of problem solvers and a lot of creatives, and he finds that to be like a really great like learning experience. In addition to that, we also have Beatrice, who was a human resources intern. She really wanted to intern in the United States because she thought it would be a good opportunity for her to launch her career, because a lot of companies are based in the United States with different offices around the world. And she really thought, again, like it would separate her from a lot of her peers back in her home country, also in Italy. So before you begin your internship search in the United States in particular, it would be really great for you to get to know the visa rules about what is needed for you to be eligible for you to participate in a J1 intern visa program in the US. So because there are certain rules for you to intern in the US. So the career training program is open to participants who are currently enrolled full-time or who have graduated within 12 months of their internship date. So if you've recently graduated, for example, you would need to submit your application within 10 months of graduation, and you must be outside of the United States at the time of your application. In addition to that, your internship must be directly related to your field of study. So even if you have a professional background in a particular field, your internship program needs to relate to your coursework. Just because that internship program is meant to bridge the academic theory and practical knowledge in a workplace. However, if you have at least 1 year of full-time professional experience and you have already graduated, the training program may be a better fit for you. That's something that we can discuss more about after this webinar, or if you shoot us an email, we'll be happy to discuss the requirements and about the training program. In addition to this, your internship program must be full-time with a minimum of 32 hours a week and a maximum of 45 hours a week. And while you are in the United States, we do want you to have exposure to US culture in and outside of the workplace. And that way, the host employer will also have that same ability to interact and understand your culture and also assist you with providing culturally rich experiences for participants like yourself so that they ensure that exchange does take place. In addition to the cultural exchange aspect, your host employer also is responsible for providing a training plan, and this is developed by your host employer since they will be the ones providing the training, and InterExchange is not responsible or cannot create the training plan for you, but we are responsible for reviewing all aspects of your training plan so that way we make sure that the internship meets these goals that I just outlined, and that you're actually learning different business practices, and that you engage with local culture, again, in and outside of the workplace. Also, for your internship program, your program cannot include any unskilled or casual labor positions. It also cannot fill any labor needs. And your host employer must have at least 5 full-time employees on site. And this is just a way that we ensure that you have constant supervision and that you're, in fact, will be receiving the training that is outlined in your training plan, because the program is meant for professional development. So this is a question that a lot of participants typically ask when they're trying to find internship is, what is a typical search timeline? Here we have data compiled from 2019 to 2020 with interviews that we've had with prospective applicants. And at least a majority, or about 2/3 of those applicants, have spent more than 3 months searching and planning for an internship in the United States. So as you can see, it's really important to really start your internship search early, especially, if you're looking for a summer internship, because while there are more opportunities in the summer, it's definitely a little bit more competitive. So you'll want to start looking now if you haven't started already. And and the reason why we suggest to start as early as possible, because international internships can be a little bit more difficult to secure. There's additional paperwork that needs to be done. There needs to be additional connection that needs to be established with your company so that they can design or create a successful training program for you that meets your requirements, the host's needs, and also InterExchange's requirements for the J1 visa program. And also you'll also have to make sure you have enough time to collect all paperwork that is needed to submit for the J1 internship visa sponsorship and the process. So in the next slide, this is what our recommended search timeline is. We're going to spend the bulk of this webinar discussing tips for the second step, which is the actual search and internship identification stage. However, we can't get to this stage without first discussing search preparation. So we're going to go through some best practices for search preps. And then we'll actually dive into the internship search timeline tips. And just as a reminder, there are other webinars on our YouTube channel that address other aspects of the search tips, such as writing cover letters and resumes, preparing for your interview, and even building your online presence, which we're gonna briefly touch in this webinar as well. But if you want a more in-depth discussion about that, you can view our webinar on our YouTube channel, which will definitely help you with internship search. So the first tip, or the first thing to think about when you're looking for your internship, is to define your goals. And this is really important because you want to start thinking about what is the kind of internship that is best for you? Think about what are your objectives and motivation for doing an internship. What type of learning experience would you like to carry out, and in what context? Think about what skills do you want to develop or perhaps implement in your internship. And then also, what type of company structure are you looking for? These are all things to think about when you are trying to think about what internship really is best for you. And then once you do that, you want to start to determine your constraints. And what we mean about that is think about where in the US you want to intern. Are you only able to accept an internship in a certain city or a region? Think about your educational objectives. Are you getting academic credit? And does that determine the type of internship you must find? And also think about stipends and benefits. You'll want to start either saving earlier in preparation for an internship abroad. Think about what's your savings, so what can you afford to accept an unpaid internship. You want to think about these things logistically, or if you're just you need a paid internship as well. And then lastly, you want to set personal expectations and priorities. You want to be really clear about this from the get-go, because some interns want to check that they are on the right track by starting to apply their classroom knowledge. And so for those interns who are more advanced, maybe developing more specific skills in a field of activity or expanding their professional network through mentorship is really key for them to intern abroad. And then while perhaps other participants, setting outside of their comfort zone would really allow them to look at an industry that maybe they weren't too familiar with and they want to get to know from a different perspective. Just whatever your goals are, definitely take stock of your training, skills, and interests before you do begin applying. And also, just a quick reminder, don't be afraid to reevaluate your goals if they have changed over the course of time, because you really want to find an internship that really aligns with you, so that you get the most out of your experience in the United States. So another search prep tip is to stay up to date with employer hiring updates, industry news, and events. So when you begin to search for employers you'd like to work with, it would be best to first check and see if the employers are still hiring or have hiring freezes. This will definitely allow you to know where to allocate most of your time during the application process, because you don't want to waste your time perhaps like applying for companies that are not currently hiring. There are websites such as Levels and Candor, which are both online platforms that would assist individuals with salary negotiation. Also, will let you know if there are any hiring freezes, and these websites have taken the time to maintain a list of companies who are having those hiring freezes or are continuously going to be hiring. And then if you, for example, if you do really want to work for a company that is not hiring at the moment, I would definitely keep checking, perhaps on their job boards or on their LinkedIn, or maybe you can reach out to them for an informational interview, or even follow up with them occasionally to see if there are any changes to their hiring, because it's definitely worth something to check out. But again, you want to still focus on all your energy into those who are hiring and probably would still be a good fit for you. And in addition to keeping up to date with hiring, a lot of companies might create a company page on LinkedIn to represent themselves and build their online presence. So we definitely would suggest to follow companies that you're interested in working with, so you can stay up to date with current news or current projects within that company. And by following them, a lot of these updates will show on your feed or by visiting their profile. And another perk to this, by following them on LinkedIn, is that you can actually see who works there. Maybe see if, again, like I mentioned, see if there aren't any positions listed on their company profile. And then again, just really overall get to learn more about the company and what they do. This will just set you apart, because you've taken the time to get to know the company, and perhaps, again, like I mentioned, reach out for an informational interview. In addition to this, something else that you can do is that you can invite people at that particular company to connect with. And before you connect with them, remember to include a personalized message. You never know where that opportunity can lead you to. Maybe even if they're not the right person to connect with about current job internship openings, they can probably tell you who to contact, and maybe they can even put you directly in contact with that person. So another thing to keep in mind is that any experience is essentially good experience. So as part of your internship search prep, you can consider some of these that we have listed out here as stepping stones to prepare for your internship. Maybe you were hoping to do an internship for the spring or this fall, but you were unable to really get an internship because of the current climate. Hopefully maybe this spring, with a lot of with travel restrictions coming at ease, you probably can even squeeze in that spring internship, maybe even the summer one. But these are something to think about, to consider other skill building opportunities or even educational opportunities that are available to you currently. Think about what skills are in demand right now. Perhaps, maybe it's data analytics, depending on your industry, project management, maybe even some harder skills. For example, such as blockchain, cloud computing, Photoshop, any Adobe skills, depending again on your industry field. If you aren't able to, have access to an educational opportunity, I would definitely suggest looking into some research grants or scholarships, financial aid, maybe some additional COVID-19 relief measures that you can research into before committing to an added education right now. So that way you have different options. You also might want to explore like free remote courses or maybe and certifications. There are sites such as Coursera that offer free courses, and there are also maybe other programs or courses that are offered by your state or local academic institution. In addition, there's also LinkedIn Learning that you can potentially use, but that I know that they have a 1-month free trial, so you can probably check to see if that works for you. And then so that's one way to look at for skill building educational opportunities. Another thing to think about for your experience is maybe you can potentially obtain an interim job to improve qualifications on your resume, real work experience, transferable skills and softs. When you are doing real work experience, you'll obtain transferable skills and perhaps soft skills that can be applied to your future internship program or your future jobs, such as problem solving, perhaps remote communication, and then time-sensitive work, that are all common things that you can obtain as skills in these interim jobs that would be able to support your future career path. In addition, being able to find work now will also show future employees that you're adaptable and able to overcome unprecedented challenges. So it really shows, again, your adaptability, and you want to always show that kind of skill set to potential employers, especially, when you're applying for international positions. Another thing to consider are externships. Externships are short-term job shadowing or shortened internships, and this is a perfect way to test out your interests and perhaps also obtain great networking opportunities in your home country. It's just, another way to build your resume. And then also, you can also consider perhaps volunteering. This is just another way to explore your interests and also add more value and experience to your resume in a particular industry or field that you're interested in. Now I'm going to hand this off to Taman, who's going to discuss a little bit more about how to find, how interns find internships.
Awesome, thank you very much. So like the last chart we saw, this data is compiled from interns who arrived in 2019 or 2020, and just the interviews that we have done. So you can see that placement companies and universities account for roughly half the participants in the way that they found their internships. These are probably the two most common routes for finding an internship in the United States, and they're typically very successful. There are advantages and disadvantages to placement companies and also using your university. So the advantage of placement companies is they make it easier for you if you don't have a wide network in the United States, if you don't know of anyone who might be able to connect you with an internship. But the downside is that you are limited to the connections that the placement company has. So if they only have connections in California, if they only have connections in the architecture field, that might not necessarily be exactly what you're looking for. Universities have plenty of connections and listings that are going to relate to your coursework and are going to typically be the routes that other interns maybe have done in the past. But the disadvantage here is it's sometimes harder to stand out if everyone at your university has the exact same coursework, and if everyone has had the same theoretical background, that your candidacy might not look too different than some of the other students in your program. So that right half of the chart are typically internships that we call found on the open market. The left side of the chart, the smaller numbers are the internships that are found on the hidden market. And we'll talk in the next couple slides about the differences of the open and hidden market. But you can see some of the other ways that participants have found internships is through friends and relatives, from just following a company that they know well and applying when a job posting or an internship posting comes up, through professional colleagues, working for a branch of that organization in their home country. And then we do have a significant portion each year that tell us they found an internship by simply calling companies or emailing companies and pitching themselves as a candidate. So I talked a little bit about placement companies, and before we discuss the open and hidden market, I want to talk about the benefits of self-sourcing your internship. This is because we typically see a higher satisfaction rate from interns who have searched for and found their own internship versus those who were placed. This is for a number of reasons, but we thought it would be useful to just highlight those benefits of finding your own internship here, because we know it sounds daunting, but it's really, it's not that bad, and it's worth the energy and the effort that you'll put in before you arrive to the United States. And the first benefit is cost. If you're finding your own internship, you don't need to pay a placement fee, which can add thousands of dollars to the international internship process. Self-placed interns save a lot of money by doing the work themselves and taking on that internship search themselves. Interns who search for their own internships, they also find internships that are better matched to their interests, to their goals, and to their desired learning objectives. There's a wide array of options available in the US, and you aren't subject to the connections or the locations or the industry of a placement company. You can find something that really suits your own interests. And the internship search itself contributes to building important skills like independence, communication, the ability to analyze varying offers and opportunities. So it's important practice for postgraduate life. It's pretty unlikely that someone's going to find your first job on your behalf. And for those reasons, US employers look very favorably on interns who pursue finding an internship on their own, especially internship seekers who've done the research and are well prepared and know exactly what they're applying for. The experience of searching on your own gives you better knowledge of the industry, both in the United States and in your home country, and helps you to make direct connections with industry professionals. Even if you don't eventually get that opportunity to work with their organization, you know who they are, they've seen your resume, they know who you are, and you have a better understanding of the field in general. This is just a list of some anecdotes from recent participants who have self-sourced their own internship, and some creative ways to use social media to network, as well as the traditional means through informational interviews, using university resources, and even cold emailing. So we have a student who followed a specific targeted company via social media and found their internship that way. Another who leveraged a visit from the host employer when they came to campus. Someone who maximized their previous time in the United States to expand their network and to engage in informational interviews. And the last anecdote is someone who discovered the company by simply staying abreast of industry literature and knowing what was going on in their field. So these opportunities for internships are out there. They're all around you. They're not always so obvious, and that's what we're going to talk about next. So let's discuss the open market for internships. The open market for internships consists of all opportunities that can be accessed by any internship seeker. This includes placement companies, this includes university databases, social media, online postings of internship opportunities like Indeed.com, internship fairs, press announcements. These internship opportunities are typically easy to find and easy to access. The company wants a wide pool of candidates, so they're making sure that as many people as possible know about these internship opportunities. There might be some restrictions. Maybe you need to be a student to access the database, but the internship is on the open market because the company wants it to be open. They want to get the best of the best, so they want to make sure that they have tons of applications that they can go through when it's time to make that selection. And this makes the process more competitive due to the significant number of other applications that the host will receive. It means that it's harder for your application to stand out. It might be harder to negotiate your exact goals for an internship once you do receive the internship, because there's just a lot of other candidates. And we talked about in some of the other webinars, it's important to make sure that they're looking at your resume and looking at it favorably, because they might only be looking for 30 seconds or even less if there's more candidates. So these are two anecdotes from people who have found their internships on the open market. One who went to a conference and did research on the companies that would be there, and another that was just applying to every open internship position at this company that they saw. Every time it was posted online, they would apply, and eventually it worked out and they were able to find an internship with that company. So the inverse is the hidden market. So the hidden market, these are opportunities that are not actively promoted by a company. A significant portion of the hidden market opportunities are accessed by networking, using professors, family, other students, friends. In one of these examples, a choreographer put the intern in touch with their eventual company. So these contacts know of companies with a capacity for training or relevant opportunities, and they can make that connection between you as a candidate and the host company. In some cases, these companies haven't even posted the opportunity, or they're not actively seeking an intern at the moment. And this is where some interns succeed in cold contacting organizations. I think we saw about 5% a couple slides ago found their internships that way. Interns will even propose self-designed internships. So this requires more effort, and it requires an ability to withstand rejection. Companies are not actively promoting internship opportunities, so they might not have the capacity to train you as an intern. And you might receive a lot more no's than yeses, but those yeses are going to be more in line with what your overall goals are. And sometimes your research might not necessarily be correct. If you're proposing a self-placed internship, you don't know for sure that the need you've identified at the company is accurate. So it's important to do your research and to the best of your ability, try and find a niche that you bring to the organization that would make you an attractive internship candidate if there's not something that's already being posted. Try and figure out what the value added is that you would bring to that organization. And we highlight both the open market and the hidden market because they combine to show you the entire market of US internships, US internship opportunities. The wider and deeper you cast your net, the more success you're going to have finding your ideal internship. So going back 3 or 4 slides ago where you saw all those different ways that interns have found their internships, it doesn't mean that you have to just pick one. You can be looking at university database, you can be cold calling, you can be using your network, and you can make sure that you're taking advantage of all the opportunities out there for searching for internships. So before we go into our 8 tips for searching, I do want to pause for any questions that have come in for the first 2/3 of the presentation about some of those preparation techniques. Fatima, do we have any questions so far?
Yes, we have 3 questions that came in. The first one is from Katie. Her question is, if I would like to go on an internship next year in 2022 in the fall, how early should I apply to do so?
So I would look at the timeline that we had a few slides ago. You're probably going to start seeing opportunities for fall internships posted during summer of 2022, but now is an excellent time to start that preparation to make sure that your resume is polished, to make sure you know the companies that you would potentially want to intern at, all of those preparation techniques that Fatima talked about. What are your constraints? What are your motivations? Now is the time to start thinking about those. And then the time to start submitting your applications is going to be dependent on those organizations that you do find. Probably you'll see about June or July will be deadlines for fall internships, but that doesn't mean that you should wait until June or July to start thinking about it. It's great that you're attending this webinar now and you're thinking about the preparation that you'll need to undertake before the summer rolls around.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Next, we have Jillian. Her question is, I completed college in June 2021. Am I still eligible for USA internships?
Yeah, so this is another logistics question that Fatima touched on a little bit earlier, and it's kind of complex. If you graduated in June of 2021, you will be eligible for an internship that starts anytime before June of 2022. If June of 2022 rolls around and you haven't yet started an internship in the United States, the mechanism to come to the US on a training program would be through the trainee visa. And under the trainee visa, you need to have a degree, which it sounds like you do, and 1 year of postgraduate work experience outside of the United States. So those are the two options, but up until June of 2022, you are eligible to apply as a J1 intern.
Great, thank you. And last question is from Joy. What if I don't have a network in the United States?
So if you don't have a network in the United States, placement companies are an option for you. We're going to talk pretty in depth next week about developing a network and thinking about secondary contacts that you might have. I would say if you don't have a network in the United States, think about who you know who does have a network, and could they connect you to someone who could connect you to an internship. It's not always necessarily as clean as some of the examples we see where someone says, my uncle works for this company and they were able to make a connection for me. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 connections to find that appropriate person. So similar to the first person who was thinking about next fall, start thinking now about who your connections are as part of your preparation and who you know who's been to the United States, who lives in the United States, or who has some connection to companies in the US that can help introduce you and show your resume off to some of these potential host employers. Great, so I think with that, we're going to just go into, we have 8 tips for finding internships, for searching for internships in the United States. And the first one is actually networking. So I think the previous question segues us really, really nicely into this. One of the best ways to access the hidden market is to use your network. So once you identify potential companies and fields, think about who you already know that can help make that introduction to these companies. You use your network to find the most obvious connections, maybe past and present colleagues, maybe other students in your program who are a couple of years older than you and maybe have done internships in the United States, perhaps professors, but you might see connections come in unexpected places. So make sure you let everyone know that you are looking for an internship in the United States. Bring it up in casual conversation. If you have a current host employer that you're okay with them knowing about your plan, you can put it on your LinkedIn profile, but be open about this idea you have and this goal, and you might be surprised where some of the connections come from. In addition, make a list of targeted organizations that might have opportunities on the hidden market and start to reach out to those organizations with internship proposals, or even just ask for informational interviews and maybe learn a little bit more how some people who work in that company got into the field or how they found their position. Keep organized and follow up with any notes that you have, any appropriate follow-ups. Make sure that you're staying in touch with those contacts, because this is a way you can intentionally grow your network. There's also cold contacting. So cold calling is when you reach out to people or companies that you don't know and you pitch yourself. The phrase comes from a sort of sales technique, and that's exactly what you're doing. You're selling yourself. So cold contacting can have a pretty high rejection rate, like I said a few slides ago. So you need to maintain that confidence, and you need to be prepared that not every place that you reach out to is going to have an opportunity, or they're even going to reply to your email. We see a lot of prospective interns who get really frustrated because they have sent 10 emails and haven't gotten a response. And sometimes companies are busy, or you maybe didn't reach out to the right person. So it takes a lot of patience, and it's a lot of effort at the beginning, but you never know when you're going to find the perfect company who has a need and it works out, and you find your dream internship in the US. So asking for informational interviews is another great strategy. An informational interview is an informal conversation that you can have with someone working in an area of interest to you. It's an effective tool that's best done after the preliminary research. So once you know what a company does, what this person does, then you can reach out and ask to talk to them a little bit more. An informational interview is not the same as a job interview or an internship interview. The objective is not to get hired. The goal is to gain firsthand knowledge about the company, about the industry, or about the position that the person holds that might not be available online. So you can find out a bit more about the career paths that you didn't know existed. You can get some tips and some insider knowledge about how to prepare for a position that might be similar. You can build your network and have this person who might be able to make connections within the field or at this host company. But again, the goal is not to get an internship from an informational interview. These last two bullets are stats that show the importance of networking and effective networking. The National Association of Colleges and Employers did a study that showed 93% of employers recruit via their current and former interns. So if you know someone who has interned at a company, most likely their host employer is going to be reaching out to that intern and saying, who else do you know who has similar skills that we could bring onto our organization? And 80% of employers recruit via alumni referrals. So they are using their alumni and their past interns to make those referrals and help them find future candidates who are going to be excellent. Some great anecdotes here about networking from real interns in the last year or so. One student who contacted other fellow students who had done internships at that company, and they were able to get her resume to the appropriate person. And another person who asked professionals in their career how they advanced, just did a bunch of informational interviews. And someone mentioned doing an internship abroad, and they referred that person to the same host employer, and that's how they found their internship overseas. So there's many different ways that you can network, and it's an excellent way of finding an internship. And with that, I'm going to toss it back over to Fatima to talk about her expertise.
Thank you, Sam. So the second tip, tip number 2, is to maintain a virtual impression and leverage your network through your online presence. And chances are you already probably have created accounts on social media websites such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google+, LinkedIn, YouTube, whatever it may be. However, if you haven't, the first and easiest step to creating a virtual impression is to establish accounts on social networking websites that really showcase your previous experience and skills, specifically LinkedIn. Now, it's really important that you establish your own professional brand that is consistent through your online platforms, because social media is all about storytelling. And before you begin working on your social media profiles, you'll also want to create a statement that is unique to your brand and is representative of you, your goals, and your values. So the first step I would definitely suggest to maintaining a virtual impression is to polish your LinkedIn profile. You'll want to add a profile picture, a background photo, create a headline describing yourself and your interests. You want to separate yourself definitely through the headline, and then add a summary about in your LinkedIn profile about your relevant work experience, your skills, and also request any recommendations from your colleagues, your peers, or previous employers. And then in addition to this, you'll also want to connect with industry professionals. As Tammy mentioned earlier, it's really important to start networking, and LinkedIn is one of the best ways to start your professional network. And as you know, we all know sometimes getting hired for an internship isn't always about what you know, but who you know. So that's why it's important to start building your network through LinkedIn, and then also leveraging your profile so that you can land an internship. And creating and building your online presence will also allow you to document and exhibit your work, and all that is ultimately presented in your resume or your CV. And with that, also feel free to use examples from class projects or previous work projects, specifically your class project if you don't have too much work experience. This is essentially your body of work, so it's definitely something you want to include in your portfolio, and something that you can also attach as links onto your LinkedIn profile. And in this way, you can really take advantage of all the audio and visual representation of any research you've done, any projects you've done, or any of experiences you've had thus far. And that way, one way to do that obviously is to also create an online portfolio, and that way you really get to showcase everything that you've done in your career so far. Now, we actually did have a webinar last week, and that's more in depth about building your online presence and leveraging your LinkedIn profile. You can easily go on our YouTube page and review that, and it'll go a little bit more in depth about how to really leverage your LinkedIn profile in your internship search. So tip number 3 is to visit your university career services center, especially if you don't have a large network. A lot of your university advisors can really act as your career coach, and they'll help you to explore different career options that really align with your interests, skills, and values. And they'll additionally help you create a direction of where you would like to go in your career. So for example, if you're fairly creative or incredibly organized and are a good communicator, but you have no idea what that means in the workplace, your career services center can really help you connect the dots and recognize possible opportunities. Maybe you could make a good project manager in an IT setting, or you can be a great account manager at an ad agency. The career services center can really help you break down the things that feel overwhelming for you and help you where you are in your career development. Again, such as putting together a resume or even preparing for an interview. Perhaps you can even do a mock interview with your university advisors. In addition to this, you can also take advantage of your university connections, such as the alumni or those who are, in the same organization as you on campus, or even your professors, like your career services center will really also help you to construct certain messages, like the right kind of message to send to alumni, or even choose the right kind of questions that they might ask if you were to do an informational interview with those alumni. And lastly, you can also really take advantage of the university job database. A lot of the times your university might have certain partnerships or connections with different companies, and this is just a great starting place to find different internships in your field, or perhaps your professor can also connect you to someone within your field that you would like to learn more about what they're doing or see if there's any potential internships available. So our next tip, similar to a job database, is to actually visit career websites, particularly like internship search engines and websites that are particular to your industry field. Here we have listed a bunch of different industry fields such as accounting, advertising, architecture, engineering, poli-sci, hotel management, the list goes on. There are definitely hundreds of different online internship search engines in the United States, and the following websites that we have listed here allow you to post your resume. You can search the listings by industry, potentially find career advice, and discover tips for cover letters, resumes, and interviewing as well. We also have a host employer database that the Career Training USA program maintains. It is a great foundation as well to start searching for internships. This list is a list of previous host employers who have already hosted a participant and have been vetted by InterExchange. I do want to note that not all host employers might be hiring, but at this point that are on that list, but it is also another good place to start reaching out to some of that host employer and start crafting those messages that you would craft to other potential host employers as well. Now we throw it back to Taman.
Thank you. I'm just going to jump in for tip number 5. So tip number 5 is to contact companies that have a global focus. Multinational enterprises are likely to already be familiar with the visa process for interns, and it's unlikely that you're the first person to inquire about an international internship. So you might be able to begin an internship in the United States in your home country and maybe do a second internship in the United States with the same organization. I think we saw this as an example on one of the earlier slides, but about 6% of all interns trained with a branch of the company that they train with in the United States, they train with a branch of that company outside of the United States first. Some large companies also run summer internship programs each year, and international students in a summer cohort is a great benefit to a US company because your perspective is going to add variety and perhaps new methodologies and techniques to the group, so you're able to have a huge value added to those summer internship cohorts. And the fixed dates mean that you can plan backwards for next year's cycle. If you know the application for the 2021 cycle opened on January 1st of 2021, and it did the same thing in 2020, 2019, you have a good idea that next year the schedule will remain the same, and you can be sure that the internship application is going to open in January or March or whenever it did last year. Also, some multinational enterprises specifically seek international interns. So see what companies are recruiting in your country. They might be visiting your campus or maybe even a nearby campus for an internship there. And even if they aren't coming to your school, you can take the initiative and you can reach out to the recruiter and you can share your resume and you can share your interests. And going all the way back to what we talked about as a benefit for self-sourcing your internships, this shows initiative to the recruiter that, wow, that person really likes our company, that even though I'm not coming to their school, they send me their resume and they send me their details. Let me take a closer look at their application.
So tip number 6 is perhaps create your own internship. So just because a company has not posted an internship position on its website, it doesn't mean that they don't offer internships. In fact, most companies actually do or would be willing to perhaps hire you for an internship with the right proposal from a prospective intern. And demonstrating an interest in interning or training with a company also shows that you've done your research in the company and are a really motivated candidate who's interested in their projects and what they have to do. And in addition to this, so based on the information you've gathered on the company you'd like to work for, I would suggest to really start creating that proposal, like prepare a written document outlining an internship that you would like to do with the company. You may also want to suggest a project for a particular department or a position for a particular need that you know the company has. Also, while flexibility is important within the company, it's also really important for you to be specific with what you would like to do and the skills that you have to offer. And the reason for this is because a company is more likely to offer an internship to someone who has a plan and is goal-oriented as opposed to someone who will just do whatever the company wants just to be hired. So you really want to be specific in your proposal when you're creating that outline about what you have to offer. So after this, once you created that proposal, you can send your proposal via email to the company, either to a specific person with potentially maybe you've made contact with, or to the general human resources department. I would definitely check the company's website to see if they have a contact us section to find out the best way to submit your proposal. Or you can, maybe even call them and find out who handles the internship request, or even visit their LinkedIn profile, as I mentioned earlier, to see who's their HR rep or the best contact person. And please keep in mind that proposing and developing an internship does take time, and it's just one of the many ways to find an internship in your field. Please don't be discouraged if you don't hear back from all employers or if you don't receive positive responses. Many companies potentially just don't have the resources or the time to hire an intern at the time of your application, but that doesn't mean that you won't be able to they won't be able to offer you something in the future or refer you to someone else who could potentially hire you. And lastly, as you create your proposal, always remember to attach your resume, as it's important for you to outline your experiences and to write successful resumes. We also have a webinar on that. Free feel to check it out. We'll follow up with you some resources as well after this webinar.
Great. So tip number 7 is check for new developments. If you've found a really useful listing site or some really interesting companies, make sure you're staying up to date with their website. Keep refreshing the listing sites for new postings every few days, or even more often during the busier season or as it gets close to when you want to start your internship. Maybe even for general search engines, you want to check it daily. But like the far right column that Fatima showed in a slide a few slides ago on tip number 4, there's a lot of opportunities on some of those general sites. You can also set up a Google alert with keywords or key companies that are related to your internship search so that you're getting the most up-to-date information. Once you've identified some opportunities, make sure that you apply well in advance of the deadline. There's no guarantee that the company is going to keep their internship application open until the date they post. They might find a great candidate and decide they want to close the application early. Don't rush your application. Don't submit something that is going to be sloppy or not received well, but make sure that you do give yourself a buffer between when the deadline is and when you're ready to start submitting. Make sure that you read the instructions so that you show that you are eager and you're ready to submit your application, but that you're also organized and you're detail-oriented. Be aware of the company's deadline as well. If they say in the posting that offers will be made in 3 months, don't email them in 2 weeks and ask for an update, because it shows that you're not paying attention to what their stated timeline is. If you haven't heard anything in 3 months, then it's appropriate to follow up and ask and make sure that you're writing a professional follow-up and you're professional in that response, but you can certainly check in. You can also do a little bit of research into what the hiring process might be at the company, and that's for websites like Glassdoor and LinkedIn, or if you have a network at the organization, those people can be really helpful in letting you know that you should expect to hear something quickly, or maybe you shouldn't expect to hear something very soon, or that there's going to be 3 interviews as part of the process, just so you can mentally wrap your head around what the timeline is going to be. Some companies are going to be incredibly quick with their responses, and others are going to take a more measured approach. It's also a great idea to loop back to your network as well every maybe a month or so. If you're searching over a long period of time, like most interns are, there might be updates that they have, and they maybe don't think, oh, I should see if my friend's still looking for an internship in the States. It's going to be on you to reach out and just ask if they've heard anything new or if there are any updates. And also during that time, you can be working on additional skills, and you can let them know, I've now passed this data analytics course and I have more data analytics skills, just so that they know what you're doing and maybe new skills that you have that might fit well for some of the connections that they have in the United States. The last tip we have is to keep organized. If you're submitting multiple applications a day, it might be hard to keep track of all the companies and all the internship positions. Make sure that you put together some way of staying organized, perhaps a spreadsheet of each internship that you apply to. Maybe include some of the more important details like the description of the internship, the deadline, whether you submitted or not. If they asked for a resume, what version of your resume did you submit? What version of a cover letter did you use? Who's the point of contact at the organization? I would also either take a screenshot or download the internship posting, and this will be useful if the company eventually takes the posting down and you get an interview. That way you still have something to reference before the interview, so you can go back and know exactly what all the internship duties are. Or maybe in a few months they post something that sounds incredibly similar to what you did apply for. You can look and compare the 2 internship descriptions. Either way, you'll want to have that information stored, just because it's not going to live on the internet forever. It also doesn't hurt to keep a running list of internships that you seriously considered but then decided not to apply to, and maybe why you decided not to apply to. It's something that could be really helpful over the long period of time if a few months later that same company posts a similar internship. Instead of spending all that time researching the company to find out it's not a good fit, you have your spreadsheet that you can go back to and say, oh, okay, I decided not to apply because it's an unpaid position or because it requires some type of degree that I don't have. These 2 anecdotes on the left, I think, are 2 great examples to end with. I know we haven't highlighted every single example throughout this presentation, but I think these really tie in nicely. One intern specifically zeroed in on the city of Philadelphia and approached nearly 24 different companies there. He reached out and researched to each one, kept detailed information about the organization so that he wasn't sending a resume addressed to company A to company B. And then another intern, she interviewed with multiple high-end restaurants. She weighed her options. She chose one specific host, but for both, finding that perfect internship would probably not have been possible without staying organized and knowing all of the internships that were available in San Francisco, all of the architecture companies that were available in Philadelphia, and which ones met their specific criteria. With that, I know we're a little bit over time, so I'm going to just briefly give everyone a chance to type in any questions that they might have. I know we covered a lot of information today, and again, you'll all get slides of this presentation so you can look at it and look at some of those links at your own leisure. But as a reminder, there are 5 more webinars coming up in the series. Next week, we'll talk about networking, whole presentation dedicated to networking and developing mentor-mentee relationships. In 2 weeks, we will talk about interviewing and interview techniques, then US workplace culture, English in the US workplace, and our advice from alumni about successful internships in the United States. And as always, here's our contact information if you have any questions for the Career Training USA team. Fatima, do we have any follow-up questions, or is that everything for today's webinar?
That is actually everything for today's webinar. There is no new questions that came in. It seems like all the questions were earlier in the presentation. But yeah, I think that might be it.
Excellent. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, and have a great afternoon, evening. I think it might even be morning in some parts of the world for some of our attendees, and look forward to talking with everyone next week. Take care.
Thank you.